The internet didn't just blink. It detonated the second Erika Kirk's ex stepped out of the shadows and opened his mouth. For years, his name was erased, his presence scrubbed clean from the narrative, his connection to Erika reduced to silence and speculation. And then, without warning, he broke that silence in a way that felt less like an interview and more like a controlled explosion aimed straight at the heart of everything the public thought they knew. Because this wasn't a bitter rant. This wasn't a clout grab. This was calculated, emotional, and terrifyingly calm. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult her. He didn't beg to be believed. He simply spoke about marriage, about children, about timelines that suddenly don't add up, and the internet felt the ground shift beneath its feet. Within minutes, social media went feral. Old videos resurfaced. Family photos were dissected frame by frame. Comments from years ago were reread with new meaning. Fans who once praised Erika's picture-perfect life are now whispering the same question in every corner of the internet. What was hidden, and why? And then came the line that changed everything. A quiet sentence about kids. About truth. About things they were never supposed to question. That's when the chaos truly began. Influencers froze mid-live stream. Comment sections erupted into panic and outrage. Insiders started leaking that Erika had always feared this moment, not because of lies, but because of what the truth might do once it was finally spoken out loud. Because when someone stays silent for years and then chooses now to talk, it's never accidental. And whatever he's about to reveal next, it threatens to tear down far more than just a reputation. For years, Erika Kirk's past existed like a locked room no one was allowed to open. Fans saw the highlight reel. The smiles. The carefully worded captions about family, faith, and growth. What they never saw was the part of her life that didn't survive the rebrand. And according to her ex, that erasure wasn't accidental, it was intentional. When he finally spoke, the first thing that shocked people wasn't what he said, but how he said it. Calm. Measured. Almost exhausted. Like someone who had rehearsed silence for years, and finally ran out of reasons to keep protecting someone who never protected him in return. He didn't start with accusations. He started with context. He talked about who Erika was before the cameras, before the image, before the marriage that would later be presented as her great love story. He described a woman constantly reinventing herself, chasing stability while running from accountability. Someone who wanted a clean future so badly that she treated her past like a liability that needed to be buried. And he made one thing painfully clear: he wasn't just part of that past, he was a witness to it. The internet leaned forward the moment he mentioned the marriage. Because he didn't describe it as a fairy tale. He described it as rushed. Strategic. Timed around optics and opportunity. According to him, Erika didn't fall into marriage, she decided on it. He claimed she talked openly about wanting a life that looked respectable, stable, untouchable. A life where no one would question her choices if the picture looked perfect enough. And then he said the word that cracked the entire illusion: kids. His voice changed when he brought them up. Slower. Heavier. Like every sentence carried weight he didn't want, but could no longer hold alone. He said the public version of motherhood didn't match the private reality. Behind the staged photos and glowing captions, there were moments of panic, confusion, and emotional volatility that never made it online. He didn't accuse her of being cruel. He didn't call her unfit. What he did was far more unsettling. He implied that things were hidden. Those questions were avoided. That certain truths were postponed with the belief they could be outrun forever. That's when the internet lost its mind. Viewers started revisiting old interviews where Erika deflected personal questions. Clips where she smiled but didn't answer directly. Moments where she seemed overly defensive about timelines, dates, and boundaries. Suddenly, those moments didn't feel like privacy, they felt like avoidance. Then came the alleged messages. Screenshots began circulating almost immediately. Claimed to be old texts between Erika and a close confidant, they painted a picture of someone overwhelmed by the pressure of maintaining an image that no longer fit her reality. Lines about feeling trapped. About not recognizing herself anymore. About being afraid of what would happen if the truth ever came out. Real or not, the damage was already done. The ex added fuel to the fire by revealing that their communication never truly ended after her marriage. He claimed Erika reached out during moments of emotional collapse. Late-night messages. Calls she didn't want traced. Conversations that crossed lines no one wanted to admit existed. According to him, she trusted him with fears she never shared publicly, doubts about her marriage, anxiety about motherhood, and regret about decisions she couldn't undo. And then he said the sentence that flipped everything upside down. If the people closest to her knew what she told me, nothing would look the same. That line detonated across social media like a bomb. Was it emotional infidelity? Was it guilt? Was it something tied to the children? Commentators argued non-stop. Some accused him of exploiting private conversations. Others said this sounded like a man finally telling the truth after years of being erased. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed Erika panicked the moment the audio began spreading. Calls were made. Pages were reported. Posts were quietly deleted. But the internet doesn't forget, it accelerates. Then came the whisper of an incident. The ex didn't describe it fully. He circled it. Referenced it. Let the silence do the talking. He said there was a night that changed everything. A moment that fractured her sense of control and left her terrified it would ever become public. He claimed she begged him never to mention it. That she promised it would never resurface. And then he dropped the final blow of this chapter. He said he kept proof. Not rumors. Not memories. Proof. Messages. Records. Evidence he claims exists, because he always knew one day she might try to rewrite history completely. The internet erupted instantly. Gossip pages claimed files were being shopped. Podcasters said they'd been contacted. Anonymous accounts swore they'd seen snippets. One alleged message went viral above all else: "You promised you'd never bring that night up again." No context. No names. Just a sentence heavy enough to shake millions of people. By the end of the night, one thing was undeniable: this wasn't a petty breakup resurfacing. This was a past clawing its way back into the present. And if what he's hinting at is even partially true, then the story the public knows about Erika Kirk is only the surface of something much darker. And the scariest part: this was only the beginning of what he claims he's ready to reveal. As the first wave of shock settled, the story didn't slow down, it mutated. What started as one man breaking silence turned into a full-blown unraveling of a public image that had been carefully protected for years. And the reason everything escalated so fast was simple: once people started pulling at the thread, everything began to loosen. Within hours of his statement spreading, anonymous insiders began surfacing from every corner of the internet. Former acquaintances. People claiming to have worked events. Old friends of friends who said they'd been waiting for this moment. None of them spoke boldly. None of them used full names. But their stories overlapped in ways that made the internet go quiet in the most unsettling way possible. They all said the same thing: Erika's life behind the scenes didn't match the version the public saw. One anonymous account, which quickly went viral, claimed Erika had always been obsessed with control, not just of her image, but of... And then came the leaks. Not hard evidence. Not documents. But breadcrumbs. Screenshots allegedly showing old captions that had been edited. Archived stories that no longer matched current timelines. People began noticing that entire years of Erika's life seemed strangely underdocumented compared to others. Gaps. Sudden transitions. Moments where the narrative jumped without explanation. One viral thread focused on her marriage announcement itself. Fans noticed how quickly the storyline shifted from private relationship to perfect family. How little public build-up there had been. How few details were ever shared. Suddenly, what was once praised as boundaries began to look like avoidance. Then a clip resurfaced that made everything worse. It was an old interview, barely 2 minutes long, where Erika was asked about balancing motherhood with identity. At the time, viewers thought nothing of it. But now, slowed down, replayed, dissected, people noticed the pause. The tight smile. The way she answered the idea of motherhood rather than her experience. Comment sections exploded with people saying, "Why does she sound like she's reading from a script?" That's when a second voice note allegedly surfaced. This one was rougher. Less composed. A man, claimed to be the same ex, speaking about fear. About staying quiet because of potential fallout. About not wanting to destroy lives, but also not wanting to keep lying by omission. He stopped himself multiple times mid-sentence, as if debating how far he should go. The most replayed line. "This isn't about revenge. It's about consequences." That sentence alone shifted the tone of the entire conversation. Suddenly, this wasn't framed as gossip. It was framed as reckoning. People began asking why Erika's team hadn't responded. Why no clear denial had been issued. Why comments were quietly turned off on certain platforms. Why some longtime collaborators had gone silent, or subtly distanced themselves online. And then came the reactions that poured gasoline on everything. A former associate posted a cryptic message, "You can't outrun the truth forever." A public figure, who once praised Erika, unfollowed her overnight. A podcast host hinted on air that this story has layers people aren't ready for. Even neutral observers started feeling uneasy. Because if this was all baseless, why was the response so careful? Why so quiet? Why no firm pushback? Insiders claimed Erika was scrambling behind the scenes, not publicly, but privately. Emergency calls. Legal consultations. Strategy meetings focused not on denial, but on containment. That detail alone fueled speculation that there was something specific she was trying to keep from escalating. Then came the cliffhanger that changed everything. A verified journalist tweeted a single sentence late at night. "I've been approached regarding this situation. It's more complicated than it appears." No names. No details. Just enough to send the internet into another frenzy. Because when journalists start circling, it means someone believes there's a real story beneath the noise. And as the second wave of attention peaked, one question began dominating every platform, every comment section, every live stream. If Erika's ex is telling his truth now, what happens when someone else decides to tell theirs too? By the time the third wave hit, the story was no longer moving, it was spiraling. What began as one man speaking out had transformed into a pressure chamber where silence itself felt incriminating, and every missing answer became a story of its own. And the most dangerous shift wasn't the rumors. It was the belief spreading across the internet that something real was being actively held back. Because in the middle of all the speculation, something unsettling happened. People stopped arguing about whether Erika's ex was lying, and started asking why no one was stopping him. According to multiple gossip insiders and commentary hosts, The ex had been approached quietly, not by fans, but by people urging him to slow down, to be careful, to think about collateral damage. That detail alone rattled audiences. When stories are false, they are usually dismissed loudly. When they are dangerous, they are handled quietly. And then came the shift in Erika's behavior. Still no statement. Still no denial. But behind the scenes, according to alleged sources close to her circle, everything changed. Brand partners allegedly paused campaigns. Public appearances were quietly cancelled. Even friendly influencers, who once defended her, stopped mentioning her name altogether. Not attacking. Not supporting. Just disappearing. The internet noticed. And that silence created space for something far more volatile: interpretation. People began stitching together years of content like a puzzle they were suddenly seeing clearly for the first time. Old captions about protecting peace. Videos about choosing silence over chaos. Posts about truth always finding its way out. What once sounded inspirational now felt loaded. Then came the most chilling rumor yet. A supposedly leaked message, shared anonymously and never verified, claimed the ex wasn't acting alone. That there were other people who knew pieces of the story, but had chosen to stay quiet until now. People who were watching the reaction, waiting to see how far this would go before deciding whether to speak. That rumor changed everything. Because if true, this wasn't one voice against an image. This was a dam holding back multiple versions of the same truth. Commentary channels went into overdrive. Live streams hit record numbers. Entire panels debated the same question over and over: what kind of secret forces this much silence? And just when the conversation reached peak intensity, the ex resurfaced one last time. Not with proof. Not with receipts. But with a message that felt far more threatening than evidence ever could. He wrote, "I didn't come forward to destroy her. I came forward because pretending everything was fine was doing more damage than telling the truth." That line split the internet in half. Some saw it as manipulation. Others saw it as restraint. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: this wasn't finished. Within minutes, screenshots spread claiming journalists were circling. That legal team was on standby. That conversations were happening behind closed doors no one wanted public yet. Whether those claims were true or not didn't matter anymore. The momentum was real. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the ex went silent. Accounts inactive. Messages unanswered. No follow-ups. No clarifications. That silence became the loudest moment of all. Because now the internet is left holding unanswered questions with nowhere to put them. Was this about marriage? About emotional betrayal? About identity? About things involving kids that were never meant to be debated publicly? Or was it something else entirely that hasn't even been hinted at yet? One thing is certain: the image can never go back to what it was. Once doubt enters the room, perfection doesn't survive. And whether the truth comes out tomorrow, or years from now, this story has already crossed the point of no return. Before you scroll away, pause for 1 second, because stories like this don't just happen. They unfold in real time, and the people who catch the next twist first are the ones who stay locked in while everyone else is playing catch-up. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just gossip. This is a situation that's still moving, still shifting, still hiding pieces that haven't surfaced yet. The silence. The timing. The people who suddenly stopped talking. The ones who still haven't said anything. That's not a coincidence, that's a countdown. And here's the truth most people won't say out loud: the biggest revelations never drop when everyone expects them. They drop when the attention fades. When people stop watching,